What is going on today, everybody? Welcome back to Fix It Garage and the last video of our Tundra build. That's right, the very last video is right now. In the last video, we reframe swapped the truck again, got everything on our brand new Toyota frame, and it is now ready for the cab to go back on, which is exactly where we're going to resume the video. Let's go ahead and let's jump right into the video. Alright guys, I'm cutting in real quick from this epic Tundra build to remind you guys, every Friday I am live streaming on YouTube for our weekly live stream. Be sure to stop by, hang out, chat, watch me do really bad at some racing games. I'm also streaming on Twitch, link down below. Usually try to stream 2 to 3 times a week on Twitch, so be sure to come by, hang out, show some support to my Twitch channel, and come pop into those YouTube live streams. Now let's get you guys right back into our epic Tundra build.
Alright, so we finally got the cab back on our frame, but not without struggle. We had to once again use our master certified forklift driver to help us get the cab back on. Once the cab was on, it was time to get things like the radiator condenser all installed. We needed all of that in there in order to install our supercharger intercooler or water to air intercooler and the water pump. So we wanted to go ahead and get all of that stuff installed first, which would then allow us to install the rest of the parts for the supercharger kit. We did have to wire up our supercharger water pump, which was very straightforward and very easy thanks to the Magnuson supercharger directions. It was no trouble at all to wire up that water pump. With the rest of the supercharger kit installed, it was time to install everything else that was necessary in order to fire up the engine and make sure that it runs. So the engine ran, but the belt squealed. We solved that by replacing that belt with a new one that was 1 inch shorter. That solved our belt squeal on startup. But with the engine running, it's time to put everything else back on, starting with our front end. We need to get this grille installed so we can install the Dixie horns and everything else that needs to go on the front of this truck. with the Dixie horns installed, we could install the rest of our front end. And that's right, you heard it. It sounds not quite accurate to the original Dixie horns on the Charger, but close enough that people will understand. Now that we had all of that stuff installed, we could install the rest of our front end and get the front end of this truck completely finished and done so we could move on to other things on the vehicle. Now, when you're installing a front end, you might have to do it multiple times. You have to test fit and make sure that everything's going to fit and look correct. After installing a bunch of sound deadening inside of the vehicle, it was time to install the full interior back in the truck. Now, while we had this thing all torn apart, the seats got leather wrapped and seat heaters installed, both front and rear. So that was pretty cool to find out that this thing was going to have heated seats, but we got everything installed on the interior, and then we could move on to finishing up this truck. With everything installed on the truck, it was time to install the final piece. No build is complete without a fresh set of wheels and tires. And man, these things look pretty good. They're designed to look similar to a TRD set of wheels, but they are not TRD wheels, but they look pretty close. So we went ahead and we threw on the wheels and tires to wrap up this awesome Tundra build.
was supposed to be the end of the Tundra Build series, and the next thing we were supposed to show you was the test drive. However, we ran into some pretty significant problems. One of the issues we had is we had an issue bleeding the rear brakes, where we had pretty much no brakes. The brake master cylinder had an internal seal failure, so we put a brake master cylinder in it, brakes were fixed. Then we went to go do an alignment. We pulled it off the alignment rack, and almost immediately after we pulled it off, the power steering rack exploded. So then we had to go through the process of installing a power steering rack, which was not ideal. Had to pull the differential back out in order to get the rack out. The Toyota method says pull the engine, but I found shortcuts from talking to other Toyota technicians. So we ended up doing it without having to pull the engine. However, not a fun job. Then the power steering pump had problems. Solved that. Then the truck had too much front end rake, where the front end sat down too much, so we had to get lift spacers for it, and then we could finally do our last alignment. And then the truck was actually done. So after all of that, the truck was done and it was ready for a test drive. But this is just another prime example of why anytime you're doing a big project, when you're done, when you think you're done, expect to run into some problems. Also note that projects are never done. There is still one issue with that truck that we haven't solved. It is throwing a check engine light for a CAT code, but that is not something that we're gonna be solving. That's gonna be done by a aftermarket shop, and or we're gonna just put some O2 spacer bungs in it and hope that that fixes it. But now I'm gonna throw you guys to our test drive of the Tundra, because this thing is done on the road and driving. So let's cut to the test drive. All right, so we're now in the truck. Now that we've gone over everything that went wrong from the montage till now, the truck is now driving, and surprisingly, for being supercharged, as long as I don't get on it, it's pretty much a normal truck. For a lifted Tundra, this drives better than most of them. The Fox shocks we put on are doing their job. It actually absorbs the bumps. Normally when you lift one of these things, it's like a bouncy house fun house in here. But here it's pretty stable. It is still bouncy though. I mean, it's a Tundra, what do you expect? Like, it's not gonna be perfect. But, so it is working. Currently right now the check engine light's on for a CAT code, but when you put in aftermarket catalytic converters, you run into that. We're gonna probably just space them out with some O2 sensor spacers to help make sure they're getting the correct reading instead of just whatever the heck's going on in there. But driving wise, super comfortable, super easy to drive. The heated seats make my butt hot, which is fine. I don't need it on this beautiful day that we have. Shift. So you can hear it pulling the power, but you can hear that supercharger whine just a little bit. Ooh. It is kind of weird going fast in a big truck because I'm used to cars that have really good handling. This does not have really good handling. This handles like a truck. You wouldn't want to like haul ass on very twisty, windy roads because trust me, it's going to act like a truck. It's not going to act like a car. But as far as like having a fun truck that you can, do freeway pulls on, absolutely this works. And we did upgrade the brakes, and I'm really glad we did. It stops very nicely. For having big, heavy 35s and a lift kit, we've added a lot of mass. So when you add mass and power, you need to increase your stopping power as well. So those upgraded yellow stuff pads and rotors are working very well. So driving through town with your big lifted truck, it definitely attracts a lot of attention. Not sure if it's attracting the good or the bad kind, but when you drive a bright ass orange truck, it's gonna catch some attention. Whether you like it or not, we're very visible. Like, you're not gonna see this truck. It's a traffic cone. I don't know how else to put it. It's a freaking traffic cone.
I've seen less subtle traffic cones.
Yeah. There's definitely less subtle traffic cones than this. But like overall, again, look at this. It drives nice and straight. It stops really nice. I have no complaints about it. It feels good. Like all the parts we put on were great. And that new steering rack that we had to put in,
great. The new power steering pump works good. The new brake master cylinder works. All those little things we had to dial in once the truck was done, it's all working now. So now that everything works, it's actually quite a nice truck to drive.
All right, there you have it. We have our Tundra done, ready to go back to the owner, and I don't have to look at this thing anymore. It was a fun project. Definitely don't ever want to do it again. Frame swaps are not fun, especially when you have to do it twice. And then whenever you have a project this big and you finish, always expect to run into some pretty serious issues afterwards that you have to fix. Like, nothing ever goes perfect. You're always going to find little problems that you have to correct. All in all, we finished it. We learned a lot. We had a lot of fun. It makes cool noises, and the owner's really happy with it. Like I said, I wouldn't build a truck like this, but that's okay. His truck, he's happy. We're gonna go give it back to him, and we're gonna move on to our next project, which you guys will see next week. I wanna thank all you guys for watching this series. As always, if you guys like what you saw, smash the like button, leave some comments down below, and subscribe so you guys don't miss our future projects. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up. Can't wait for you guys to see, but thank you guys all for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video. Peace.